Bro, for a second, I thought that was Bill Gates. From the side, I was like, what's he doing here?
Please introduce yourself to the jury.
I'm Ron Schnell.
And what is your current job title, Mr. Schnell?
I'm a director at Berkeley Research Group.
Okay.
And could you briefly describe your educational background since high school?
I have a master's degree in computer science.
Do you have
Where's
an
Bill
undergraduate degree?
I do not.
And can you explain to the jury why not?
When I was a kid, there was a lot of publicity about me because I was a professor at NYU. When I was 14, NYU actually offered me to go into their freshman class when I was 14, but I decided that I wanted to experience the social aspect of high school, so I turned them down, but by the time I got to college, they skipped me from undergraduate to graduate.
So when did you receive your master's degree from Syracuse University?
Okay.
It wasn't until 2008, actually.
And why wasn't it until 2008?
So because of my previous background while I was at Syracuse, including I did work at MIT in the artificial intelligence lab for the two founders of artificial intelligence, Patrick Winston and Marvin Minsky.
This is fucking awesome. Okay.
I was immediately lured to industry even while I was in graduate school, and eventually they offer you enough money where you have to take them up on it.
Yeah, you hear that, guys?
So
Quit getting mad at Train. XQC, come on.
So when you were lured away from Syracuse University, what did you do?
I worked at Bell Labs on something called the Unix operating system. Unix is an operating system, which is the core of the computer, what makes everything work. Microsoft Windows is an operating system. Mac OS is an operating system.
Yeah.
You may have heard of Linux,
which
is, Unix was the predecessor
That's what guys
to
with
Linux.
neck
So I
beards
worked
were.
on the kernel
They use.
of the Unix operating system at Bell Labs.
You have to have a
when was
neck
that,
beard to use
approximately?
Linux.
What year?
1986.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And how long did you work at Bell Labs?
A couple of years.
And what did you do after Bell Labs?
After that, I was lured away to IBM. So I worked at IBM on their version of the Unix operating system, which was called AIX.
Okay.
Also working on the kernel and managing other programmers working on the kernel.
And can you just briefly explain what the kernel is?
Right, the kernel is the center of the operating system, so it actually controls the piece of software that controls the whole computer. So it gets down to the bit level where it's actually really everything that goes on in the computer has to go through the kernel.
And what did you do after IBM?
After IBM,
So this is a
I
wizard.
founded a startup company.
We have a
What was
wizard
the name of that startup?
in the courtroom.
It's called Secure Online Systems.
And what did Secure Online Systems do?
Secure
It was a
online
company
systems.
that wrote software for mainframe computers running the various versions of the Unix operating system.
Was it
And were there any other investors in Secure Online Systems?
adding to his credibility?
Yeah, my business partner in that was Sylvester Stallone.
Okay.
And what eventually happened to
Okay.
Secure Online Systems?
Well, it was
Didn't expect
as
that.
I said, a software product that ran on mainframe computers running Unix, and we actually completed the product and it ran very well, but mainframes running Unix kind of ceased to exist back then, so we had to shut it down.
Okay.
So what did you do after the company shut down?
Then I went to work at Sun Microsystems, working on their version of Unix, which is called Solaris.
All right.
Also working on the kernel.
And approximately how long were you there at Sun?
Approximately 5 years.
And
Okay.
did you also work for Drivers Aces Inc.?
Right. Coincident with that, I also founded another startup called Driver Aces.
Jesus.
And we wrote what are called device drivers to run on the Unix operating systems. A device driver actually
This guy
teaches
goes
the
to work.
computer how to talk to hardware devices. So it also runs within the kernel.
Have you founded any other startups?
Yes.
Jesus
What was
Christ.
the other startup? What was at least one of the other startups?
So the last startup I founded was called mailcall.com, M-A-I-L.
What is that?
And that was a
M-A-I-L.
startup that
never
allowed
mind.
you to read and manage your email on your cellular phone before there were smartphones. So a computerized voice would read you your email and you could speak a reply into the phone or send it to a fax machine, basically let you manage your email on the road.
And what happened to mailcall.com?
I sold that to a public company in 2000.
How much?
And what'd you do after that?
Fuck. I wanted to know how much.
After that, I ended up working at Equifax, one of the 3 credit bureaus in the United States.
Lynchpin, thanks for 5 subs.
running software development for their internet marketing division.
50 billion.
And how long were you in that position?
Until 2005.
We're not going to lose the wizard here. I'm about to swap off if this is going to happen. What happened with the sound?
Source code and things like that. I can't talk too much about it because of a protective order, but I had special master powers in those matters.
And you said you were in that position for 6.5 years?
Correct.
So that takes us
I'll
to
handle
about
the volume.
2013, is that right?
It was 11.
2011, okay. And what did you do? What did you do in 2011?
In 2011, I didn't do much until 2013 when I took the role as a director at Berkeley Research Group.
Okay, and that's your current position, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And what are your responsibilities at Berkeley Research Group?
So I do all sorts of things. Generally, I consult. I do software projects and manage software projects and architect them. But I also do things like this, where I'm consulting in litigation and sometimes testifying in litigation.
I'm curious what this guy's going to say. I
Have
really
you taught
want
any
to
courses?
Yes, I'm an adjunct professor at Nova Southeastern University.
And what classes do you teach there?
I teach computer security and the Unix operating system environment, although since COVID I haven't been doing that.
And have you published any scholarly articles?
Yes, I have
What a surprise.
2 published articles, one related to computer security and another relating to antitrust enforcement using technology.
And what experience do you have in statistical or forensic analysis of social media?
A bunch of the consulting work
Look at
I've
that.
done involves analyzing data from social media.
My man.
Most of them have been consulting for litigation. Some of them are consulting for non-litigation. Yeah.
And is that work both in civil and criminal matters?
Yes.
And could you describe the work just a bit more in terms of what you've performed regarding statistical or forensic analysis of social media?
I can't talk about the specific cases because I haven't testified on them, and some of them are awaiting indictment, most likely. But in general, it's really the same sort of stuff I've been doing here, analyzing data from the social networks.
Okay.
And what social media platforms have you performed forensic analysis?
All of the major ones.
Holy
What are
shit.
the major ones?
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Reddit.
How much of your expert work is for plaintiffs versus work for defendants?
Well, I don't consider myself working for either plaintiff or defendant. I take my role as an independent expert extremely seriously. But looking at whose counsel has hired me over the 9 or so years I've been doing this, it's almost exactly equal.
And how many times have you been a consulting expert?
Including litigation and non-litigation, hundreds.
How many times have you been qualified in court, arbitration, or in sworn court testimony to provide expert testimony?
8 times.
Have you ever been disqualified as an expert by a court?
No.
Well, for a second,
Do you believe
I
that your
thought was a
testimony will be
bottle of
helpful in
wine.
assisting the jury understand the facts of this case?
I do.
Well, that was
Your Honor,
wine.
at this time, I tender Mr. Schnell as an expert in the fields of statistical and forensic analysis of social media.
I would
Any
agree.
objection?
Your Honor, can we be heard?
Do you want to voir dire?
Yes, I do.
Okay, you can voir dire.
Thanks.
Okay.
Sir, my name's Wayne Dennison. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You made here an analysis of certain tweets and hashtags, right?
Right.
And you made no effort to connect those tweets and hashtags to the statements being made by Adam Waldman.
I'll sustain the objection. The voir dire is just for his qualifications as an expert.
Can we be heard, Your Honor?
If you want to come forward,
Thank you.
that's fine.
Okay. All right. Let's go. So that they're gonna try and voiding the wizard. Well, I think what they're trying to do is because I don't know. This could be about the botting thing, which is like I don't know what he's gonna say because, as I said, I think that the idea that bots were shitting on Amber Heard, I don't think that's valid. And like, I don't think that's valid as a result of Amber Heard itself. Yeah, I don't think that. So I'm actually really curious to hear what he says, but because I'm assuming that might be what he's going to get to. Because like, as I said, I have like 3 examples of like why I think it's not true. But like, this guy obviously knows like a million more things than I do. So that's why I want to know what he's going to say. It can be verified? Yeah. I watched the video. It shows 2 cameras. Yeah, let's go ahead and double check right now and see if it works, okay? What the fuck was I doing? They're both muted. Like, yeah, they're both muted. What the fuck do I think is going to happen? Well, whenever they walk back, we'll see if it starts. Okay, let's see here. You were CTO for Rand Paul's 2016 presidential campaign? Well, I mean, Donald Trump made fun of Rand Paul's hair, and that was the end of his campaign. I mean, remember that? You know, that was it. That was it. Just that settled it, man. I remember that. King Chap with the 5 subs. Thank you, man. I appreciate that. Oh my God, that was a show.
All right. So, Mr. Dennison, do you have any objection to him moving in as an expert?
I wish I was streaming that stuff back then. I would have streamed every debate.
All right, then I'll move him in as
That
an
shit
expert
would've
in
been
statistical
funny.
forensic analysis of social media. Okay? Yes, sir, your question.
Mr. Schnell, what were you asked to do in this matter?
So I was asked to do several things. I used the official Twitter APIs to bring in data over several different time spans. Initially, it was April of 2020 to January of 2021.
Right.
And analyzed various hashtags and things like that.
And what is significant about April 2020?
I understand that April 2020 is related to the alleged defamatory statements by Mr. Waldman.
And you talked about APIs. What is it? What does that mean?
Okay.
API stands for
Tuna, thanks for
Application
5
Programming
subs.
Interface. That is a service that's provided by companies like Twitter
It's an
so
interface
that
with their stuff.
professionals can write programs to query Twitter to ask for various things. In this case,
Same way they do
I
mods
use 2
in
of their
WoW.
APIs. One of them is called the Search API, and that allows you to give search terms, and it will return all the tweets containing those search terms through a certain date range.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is called a Counts API, and I use that, again, through a certain date range to return any tweet that contained that hashtag.
And you just
And I should add that it may not be obvious why you need to do this, but if you just do a search on Twitter itself, it's not going to return everything. It's going to return a subset of what is out there. But using these APIs, which you pay a lot of money for, they sort of guarantee that you'll almost guarantee that you'll get everything.
Okay.
And you mentioned hashtags. I know a lot of people know what those are, but for those who don't, what's a hashtag?
Well, hashtags are a function of Twitter. They're really just part of the text of a tweet or a profile, and
Used to be
it's
called the
convenient
pound
to
sign.
put things in hashtags so that when somebody searches, they can search for a particular hashtag and it'll come up.
Okay.
And did you choose particular hashtags to search for?
I did.
And how did you choose which hashtags to use?
Well, initially I was looking at tweets that would be negative towards Ms. Heard. So
Right.
I looked through tweets that were negative towards Ms. Heard, and I found that a super majority of them were using one of 4 different hashtags.
And so overall, what did your analysis find regarding negative hashtags about Ms. Heard from April 2020 until the end of January 2021?
Okay, that's a long
There
time.
were over 1,243,000 and change uses of those hashtags during that time frame you just mentioned.
Not enough.
And did you perform an analysis of the negative hashtags from April 2020 until January 2022?
Yes, I did.
And
2022.
what was the result of that?
There were over another million, so
2 million.
2.38 million, I think.
And how did you determine
It's
that the
better?
tweets were negative about Ms. Heard?
It's like Amber Heard's a
Well,
liar.
I hadn't been
Hashtag.
asked that until later on in this, but I didn't think that that would be in controversy. I mean, some of these hashtags are pretty rude, and it would really surprise me that anyone would think that they wouldn't be negative towards Ms. Heard. But when when I was asked about it later, I actually took a random sampling and looked at them and could not find any that were not negative towards Ms. Heard.
And what was the random sampling that you used?
I did 2 of them. They were 1,000 each.
And how did you determine which 1,000 tweets to use to review in each search?
I wrote a program that truly selected them at random.
And in your experience, is 2,000 tweets a meaningful sample?
Yeah.
If they're chosen at random in this
Yeah, I would
universe,
say so.
yes.
Yeah.
In addition to the 4 hashtags for Ms. Heard, did you review any other? Did you look at any other hashtags?
I did.
And what type of hashtags did you look for?
I looked at what I found to be 6 hashtags that would be negative towards Mr. Depp.
Okay, but Michelle, could you put up demonstrative 1?
I know people use
Which is on the
hashtags
5th page of Mr.
to like inject themselves into a
attachment 4 of
conversation,
Mr.
you know?
Schnell's,
But I wonder how
designation.
common that really is. He says it's not.
Mr. Schnell,
They disagree.
Did you
They
create
use
this
the
chart?
hashtag and then
I did.
disagree with it.
and what data is this chart based on?
This is based on the search API from Twitter, and it rolls up the number of tweets with the various hashtags by month of,
Okay.
of these 2 years. 3 years.
Your Honor, I'd like to I'd make this a demonstrative Schnell demonstrative 1.
And a standpoint of 2000
Or
is
do
a
you
lot.
want it to be a-
If I could
is.
get it one of the numbers,
Absolutely, it
since
is.
it's part of the record, just.
Okay.
2000 is absolutely a
Can we
lot.
call it Schnell demonstrative 1, and then I will give you a number?
Well, the last number I have is 1837. I don't know.
Do we know if that's the last?
Did you
Can we
check
make it-
2000
can
random
we-
all negative? That
Why
was
don't we
what
make it
I was
1900? That way it's not. Can we just make it 1900?
That's perfect.
Okay.
All right, 1900 it is. Any objections to demonstrative?
No, Your Honor.
All right, you can publish that.
Okay.
And is this the chart you made, Mr. Schnell?
It is.
Okay. And at the top here, there are hashtags that are in yellow. You see that?
I do.
Okay. And if we go all the way to the right,
Uh-huh.
well, first let's scroll over to the left here. I apologize. You see, in 2020, there's the months of June and July.
I do.
Okay. And what are these columns? First, tell the jury what they represent.
So each of these is the number of tweets with the hashtags, with the corresponding hashtag during that month.
Okay. And if we look at the first one in yellow, you see that first hashtag, the 4th one over?
I do.
And are there any, what does it show from
This one here.
2018 to July of 2020?
There were none.
And then what happens in August of 2020?
Well, there's a remarkable jump from July to August of 2020. It goes from 0 to 13,870.
It's right here.
And if we scroll to the right, the last 3 hashtags, which are highlighted, shows the difference between June and July. What did your analysis show?
Well, you can see that June is about at its steady state. In July, there's also a remarkable jump.
And that's for all 3 of those hashtags?
That's correct.
Okay. And the hashtags, if the hashtags that are in blue are the ones related to Mr. Depp, correct?
Correct.
Those are negative ones to Johnny Depp.
By the
yeah.
way, what is your understanding of when the last alleged defamatory statement was made by Mr. Depp through Mr. Waldman?
My understanding is that it was the end of June of that year.
Okay.
2020?
Yes.
Now, looking at the hashtags that are highlighted in blue for Mr. Depp,
So it makes sense.
for the months of November and December of 2018 and January of 2019, what does your analysis show?
Well, I see a remarkable jump in November of 2018, and then it starts to, well, it goes way down in December of 18 and January of 19.
And do you know when Ms. Heard wrote the op-ed in this matter?
My understanding is that it was December of 2018.
Okay. And if we go to November of 2020 for the hashtags related to Mr. Depp, if you see the difference between October of 2020 and November of 2020, what do you see there?
Okay.
I also see a large jump from October to November of 2020.
Okay. And if we look at the
Okay.
last hashtag in blue that says Johnny Depp is a wife beater, what does that show what did your analysis find in terms of tweets with those hashtags?
It looks to me that also, I mean, there are none prior to, well, little here and there. There are single-digit ones, but prior to November of 2020, there are basically none, and then it jumps up to over 2,000.
Right.
And do you know what happened in November of 2020?
My understanding is that's when the UK trial ended.
Okay. We can take this down. And can you put up demonstrative 2, which will make 1901, which will identify as 1901.
Okay.
1901. Any objection?
No, Your Honor.
All right, 1901 can be published.
And Mr. Banya, what data is this chart based on?
Okay.
Oh, I did the same thing. Mr. Schnell, what data is this chart based on?
This chart is actually based on the data we just looked at.
I love how they have
until,
Amberturd on the screen,
January
bro.
2022.
Amberturd on the
It's just another way
screen.
of displaying the numbers in graphical form so that
Holy
we can see
shit.
peaks and valleys.
And what are the dotted lines?
So if you look at the top, you can see that the dashed lines are the negative hashtags towards Ms. Heard, and the solid ones are the negative hashtags towards Mr. Depp.
And what is being shown here? In your analysis, what is shown with the tweets related to Ms. Heard?
Well, you can see that there's a huge spike in February of 2020, which I believe Mr. Waldman just testified that that's when he leaked an audio tape of some kind.
Right.
There's also a notable, remarkable spike in July of 2020, in November of 2020, and then in March of 2021.
And the spike in February 2020, that came before the alleged defamatory statements, correct?
Which one?
The spike in February 2020.
That is correct.
Okay.
And even though that spike came in before the alleged defamatory statements, even taking account for that spike, what time period has more negative tweets about Ms. Heard, before or after April 2020?
Right. So even taking into account this really large spike in February of 2020, and you look at from the beginning of 2018 until the beginning of 2022, there are a majority of the negative tweets are between April of 2020 through the beginning of 2022.
Uh-huh.
And do you recall
Amberturd.
at your deposition being
Yeah,
asked
it's on the
that
screen, bro.
that a spike in negative hashtags occurring before April 8th, right before April 8th, 2020?
Objection, hearsay.
I would ask about his attorney.
Overruled, good.
I remember questions regarding particular dates, yes.
And what's your understanding as to why there was more negative tweets in April 6th and April 7th than April 8th, 2020?
Objection, no foundation.
Was there more negative tweets on April 6th and April 7th than in April 8th, 2020 as it relates to Ms. Heard?
Right. If you look at the day-by-day counts, which I supplied to Mr. Depp, and
We saw this.
you can see that there's a spike that begins on April 6th and goes for a few days. So April 6th is, to my understanding, before what people are calling the alleged defamatory statement.
And did you look at the tweets for April 6th and April 7th?
I did.
And what did you find?
I found that there are Waldman statements that are the same as on the 8th, on the 6th, and the 7th. The Daily Mail on the 6th, and Vanity Fair on the 7th.
And what terms were being used?
Well, hoax is certainly used in each of them.
Yeah.
I think abuse hoax is used in one of them. I don't have it in front of me, but generally speaking, in the 7th, I think it's the same exact terms that are used in the 1 and the 8th, but the 6th may be slightly different, but it has the word hoax.
Okay. If we can go to the second page of this demonstrative. What's being shown in the second page of this demonstrative?
Okay.
So this is generally, it's the same data as the first one.
Okay,
But I've
okay.
removed one hashtag,
The
JusticeForJohnnyDepp hashtag, because it kind of overwhelms
Yeah.
all the others because there are
Okay.
so many of them. And by removing it, it sort of rescales the graph and you can see the others much better. And even though they looked really tiny in the previous page, you can see that they're big numbers, over 100,000
Right.
and stuff. So
That's
this
smart to
really
do
this
that.
shows, and if you look between the two, you can see that the
Amberturd.
curves are the same. So it shows like a mathematical correlation between all the hashtags.
So what do you mean by mathematical correlation?
Well, they're correlated. You can see the numbers go up and down at the same place.
So I'm understanding the hashtags are essentially all going up and down at the same times?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. And can we put up demonstrative exhibit 3?
And what is this proving?
1902.
1902.
That's
Yes,
fine.
thank you.
What is this
Any
proving?
objection to 1902?
None as a
Yes,
demonstrative.
yes. Okay. You can publish that.
Mr. Schnell, did you create this chart?
Okay.
I did.
And what does this chart show?
So what I did was I took the data that I supplied to Mr. Depp, which was the original data from April of 2020 through January of 2021, and I searched it for certain key terms.
Okay.
Specifically hoax, fake, and fraud. And that's what it's representing. The top part, anyway.
And the top part, if you look at for hoax, fake, and fraud and this is within the negative hashtags or it's misheard?
Right. This is only searching through the ones that have one of these 4 hashtags in them.
Okay. And if you look at the total, oops, I'm putting that in black. Let's clear that. Well, you saw the line there. What's the total number of times it was used in the negative
Please
tweets?
say it.
Either hoax, fake, or fraud.
Please
81,120.
say the word.
And did you perform any other searches on the data?
Yes.
And
Please
what
say
searches
the
did you
word.
perform?
So I also looked in that same data for references to Waldman by itself, or Wald, and then followed by anything followed by Mignon or Minion, depending how you want to pronounce it. So
Right.
a portmanteau of Waldman and filet mignon, I guess, or minions, and looked for those in the same data.
Okay.
And in terms of the percentage of the amount of times Waldman or Waldmignon was used in the negative hashtags from April 2020 through, is it January 2021?
The percent?
Yeah, what's the percentage?
Yeah, so I found over 25% of the negative hashtag tweets, or 1 out of every 4 on average, had either Waldman or Waldmignon.
It was obviously because of his messages, what he said. It's obvious. Like, if that's
And
the point, it's clear.
I see you ran searches for hoax, fake, fraud, rather than abuse hoax in quotes or sexual violence hoax in quotes. Why didn't you run those searches?
Objection compound.
Overruled.
So so if I had put them in quotes like that, say abuse hoax in quotes, that would require that it show up in exactly that way, with the same spacing and the same order.
You're trying to prove the smear
if it said
campaign
something
thing?
like there was abuse and there was a hoax, it wouldn't get caught. So if I take the quotes out and search for them separately, search for things separately, that'll cover it and make sure that I catch everything.
Okay.
And based on your analysis of these searches within the negative hashtags, what do the results of these searches mean?
Well, obviously I can't read what's in people's minds, but when I read the disclosure of Mr. Depp's expert, Mr. Banya, he stated that if these terms, in particular the Waldman term,
Objection hearsay.
He's an expert.
No, overruled.
if these terms had shown up a lot of times in the negative hashtag tweets,
Right.
then that could show that they were paraphrasing the impetus of why people tweeted these. So I sort of adopted Mr. Banya's opinion on that and found this large number. So I agree with Mr. Depp's expert that this could show a substantial correlation.
Yeah.
To what level of
Sure.
confidence do you hold the opinions you just provided to the jury?
To a reasonable degree of scientific certainty.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Schnell. I have no further
All
questions.
right, cross-examination.
Yeah, I think that no, like, it's definitely true. Why does it matter? I don't know why it matters, but everything he said, I agree with. Yeah, sure. Let's see this.
Sir, this is the first time that you've testified as an expert as in the field of
Please
statistical
say it.
and
Imagine
forensic
him
analysis
saying "turd"
of social media,
with
isn't
his accent.
I've consulted
say
on
it.
litigation for it, but it never got to testimony. That's correct.
it? This is your first testimony.
Testimony, yes.
Right. And you've never been involved in a defamation case before.
That's correct.
And you're being compensated for your time here today and the work you did, correct?
Berkeley Research Group is being compensated, yes.
At $600 an hour.
That's what they're getting paid.
Big
Right.
money.
And you're aware that Mr. Depp is being sued based on allegedly defamatory statements. What are the dates of those statements?
My understanding is there was something around April 8th, I believe April 27th and June 24th, somewhere in the end of June.
No, that's
Okay.
reasonable
So,
for something like this. Yeah, it's reasonable.
and where do you understand those statements to have resided?
In the public media.
In any particular article or?
I didn't consider that.
Right?
So you're not offering an opinion on how widely the articles that contain those statements were read?
That's correct.
And you're not offering an opinion as to how many people actually saw the language that's been attributed to Mr. Waldman?
Only a minimum number of people who could have seen it based on the tweets that referenced him.
Okay.
Which is not that. I would not even say that. I think that's
And
not
you
even
don't
true.
know even where those references appear in the articles?
What?
I'm not sure what you mean.
There are statements by Mr. Waldman that appear in articles. Do you understand that?
I do.
Do you know in what portion of the articles the statements appear?
I've looked at the articles, and from that, I've seen where they appear.
And
Amberturd,
and
please.
where, in general, do they appear?
Amberturd.
In the middle, the end? What's your sense?
Please,
That,
bro.
I'm not sure.
Please.
I mean, the ones I looked at on the 6th and 7th, I think they were
Please
towards the
say
top.
it.
All right. So you testified that you reviewed a number of hashtags that you deemed were negative towards Ms. Heard.
And also negative towards Johnny Depp.
That's right?
Yes.
Yeah. And the four you picked, at least the negative ones, Justice for Johnny Depp, that's from one of them, right?
That's right.
AmberHeard is an abuser, that's one of them.
That
That is one of them.
We just don't like you, Amber, that's one of them.
That is one of them.
And the last one was Amberturd, right?
That is another one.
Okay. And these four hashtags you identified and searched for, you have no,
Yes.
you don't believe they have any connection, or you testified that you have no
Yes,
connection to
dude.
these three walls.
We got him.
The hashtags aren't attached.
We fucking did it.
Right?
Well, I did an additional
Show
analysis
face.
that did show how many of those had Waldman connected to them, and I found that 1 out of 4 of them did.
Thank you, Sasquatch.
Right.
For the 20 subs.
But when you were deposed,
Oh
you
my
were asked
god.
whether
Yes, dude.
these were related. These particular hashtags were related to any of the Waldman statements, and you said no at that time.
I said more than that. I said I didn't know.
No further questions?
And then I said I'm basing my.
Yes.
I'm looking at Mr. Banya's opinion where
Whenever
he
he
says
said
they
the
would
second
be
one,
if they were in large number.
it's gonna
And
happen.
I'm adopting his opinion and agreeing with him that they must be connected.
So you're adopting an opinion that hasn't been rendered in this case yet by anybody but you.
Well, I know that Mr. Banya
has testified.
Sir, these things for 5 subs.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
What I'm saying is I know that
Thanks.
Mr. Banya's disclosure says that he is expected to come to that opinion.
All right. But the only person who's ever expressed this opinion to date in this courtroom is you, correct?
I wouldn't know. I haven't watched everything. I've watched a bit.
So
but
you're adopting your own opinion.
Yeah.
no, I'm adopting the opinion that I read in Mr. Banya's disclosure.
All right. And that's not the opinion you had during your deposition.
Oh.
I think I did make reference in my deposition to what Mr. Banya said, and that I agreed with it.
All right.
Well, let's see
And
it.
you indicated
He
in
could have been
deposition
watching
you
my
didn't
stream.
take into account statements made in the media, correct?
Made in what? I couldn't hear.
You said you did not take into account in your analysis statements made in the media.
Media. Yes, in the analysis where I gathered data and decided which data to gather, I did not take into account statements in the media.
All right.
That's a good
You-
point.
So you
That
looked
actually
at
is a good
data,
point.
You produced charts. You did analysis relating to the data. But you had no reason at the time you did this to consider any particular statements. Isn't that true?
That's true. I think that's an appropriate scientific methodology to not to first gather as much data as possible and then drill down on the data.
All right.
Okay.
And the Twitter data you collected shows that the 4 hashtags you identified were in existence before Mr. Waldman made the first statement in April 2020, right?
That's true.
That's correct.
Right.
In very small number.
But Justice for Johnny Depp has been around since 2013, correct?
That sounds correct.
Yeah. AmberHeard is an abuser, and Amberturd first appeared in 2016, correct?
I don't recall, actually.
Right. Do you recall if there was any
The
portion
two-time.
of Mr. Waldman's statement that made any reference to Amberturd?
Not that
The
I've seen.
3-time.
People can form a
She's
negative
mad!
opinion of Heard without reading Mr. Waldman's statements,
The
correct?
3-time.
People can form a negative opinion of anyone without reading anything. That's correct.
That's true.
And you didn't consider
Say it
whether there
again.
was negative publicity around Miss Heard
Say it
other
again.
than Waldman's statements.
Well, what I did was to report on
Come on, let's go for
correlation
4.
with these hashtags and certain search terms in particular. I wasn't trying to read anyone's mind as to why they used them.
Oh, come on, please.
You didn't form any opinion that of the million tweets, million-plus tweets that you looked at, were connected in some way to Mr. Waldman's statements.
I did eventually, yes.
It's not, I think, for 10
You did
subs.
eventually after you read somebody else's report
Please, bro.
relative to testimony that hasn't been given here.
Please.
I did it before my deposition.
All right. You have a demonstrative that counsel played for you. Can we put up plaintiff's?
Try to get him
1901
to
again?
say it.
This is yours, right?
Try
Correct.
to get him to say it, please.
The
I'm waiting.
biggest spikes, by far the biggest spikes here, are attributable to what hashtag?
Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag.
Fuck.
And there are spikes that existed considerably before
Please.
Mr. Waldman's statement. You were asked about that by counsel.
One of them did. That was the date that Mr. Waldman leaked the audio tape.
The biggest spike
Oh, my God.
was before the statements.
Right, the date he leaked the audio.
And then there were many statements that, or there are many hashtags, or uses of the hashtag, that follow the statements.
Please.
You'll have to be more specific.
Please.
So you looked at 1.2 million of these hashtags, right?
Right.
In your chart, didn't 980,000 of these plus belong to Justice for Johnny Depp?
That sounds about right. You'd have to show me, but I'll take your word for it.
All right. But the vast majority of them were Justice for Johnny Depp.
A majority of them were.
Well, it wasn't the majority so large that you had to draw another chart?
The reason for drawing another chart is because the numbers were high at particular points, so you wouldn't be able to see the other hashtags.
Right. Literally, this is your chart, and all of the other activity at the bottom you can barely see in comparison to the hashtag JusticeForJohnnyDepp.
It eclipses
Right, as I
all
testified,
other hashtags.
you can barely see them because of the spikes in the Justice for Johnny Depp hashtag, but when you look at the other chart, you can
Yes.
see that those others are still very large numbers.
So you're not offering any opinion as to what caused these spikes.
That's correct.
Right. So you're not opining as to why these spikes are there.
I'm only talking about correlation.
Right. You're talking about a mathematical connection.
That's right.
Of course.
And you don't purport to be in anybody's head such that you know why they did a particular post with a particular hashtag.
That's correct.
All right. There's a second spike that appears to be in July of 2020.
Yes, the pointer was pointing to a different one, but yes.
Yeah. Were you aware there was a trial in the UK in 2020
I'm aware.
and in July?
You're saying it was in July?
No, but as of the time of that spike, there was publicity around a trial, correct?
I don't know how much publicity there was. I know the trial was going on then.
All right. There are a number of things called out in your chart
Yeah. Go back to the graph.
relative to particular dates, December 17th, February 11th, February 14th. You see all those?
I do.
And your chart makes absolutely no reference to and does not identify the dates of any of the Waldman statements, does it, sir?
No, it doesn't call those out, if that's what you're asking.
It calls out a whole bunch of other dates, but nothing relative to the Waldman statements.
Correct.
That
All right. All right. At some point, you ran searches for additional search terms: hoax, fraud. I think you said fake.
shit.
And then
Come on.
you don't
Oh
know
my
why
God.
those
Come
terms
on.
appeared, do you?
I'm not sure what you mean by that question.
Amberturd should be
Are
the
you asking
brown
me?
line. Oh God.
You could not perform a scientific analysis of the reason why those terms appeared in the tweets you were looking at.
Right. I could only show mathematical correlation.
Right. You can show a correlation, but you don't have any idea why they're there.
I can't get into people's heads.
Right. And just because the tweet contains one of the terms does not mean the tweet was in some way prompted by Mr. Waldman, right?
That's true.
Well, there are a few things I searched for. The ones you just mentioned, and then the Waldman and Waldman-Yon terms. So, it's not that big a stretch to say that it's related to Mr. Waldman if it's his name and Waldman-Yon or Minion.
Wait a minute. Is the new standard it's not that big a stretch?
No.
Or the
I'm trying to
standard
speak. I'm
scientific
trying to.
certainty, right?
Yes.
All right. So you're not suggesting that you know why Mr. Waldman's name appeared in any of these tweets?
Well,
He's talking about
if you look at-
statistical
if you look
probability.
at the
He
tweets
can
that
never
have
confirm
Waldman-Yon,
anything like this. He literally
I
wizard
looked
can't
at
win.
a large sample of them.
The wizard cannot win because it's all
just-
statistical
a large
probability
sample is,
and deviation.
2,000 out of 1,000,002.
No, I looked at more than that of these. But that's another thing that I wouldn't expect to be in controversy. When people are saying that they're part of the Wald Minions or things like that, I would expect everybody to agree without arguing that it has to do with Mr. Waldman.
And nobody asked whether it had to do with Mr. Waldman. I'm wondering, how do you know that it had anything to do with Mr. Waldman's statements?
But I was under the impression, I was informed that nobody really knew who Mr. Waldman was before all of this. So
Which is true.
I wouldn't expect it to be anything else. I didn't think it was in controversy.
It wasn't in controversy whether everyone knew who Mr. Waldman was. Is that your testimony?
No, I'm saying it wasn't in controversy that that if somebody was suddenly talking about him, that it had to do with this case.
All right, but again, it's not, did it have to do with this case? It's, did it have to do with the allegedly defamatory statements? You have no idea, do you, sir?
I can't get into anyone's mind. I can only talk about the science of it.
Right.
Uh-oh.
And so you
Wizard
identify all
versus
of these,
warrior.
Hashtags as
Uh-oh.
negative towards Miss Heard, right?
Right.
Justice for Johnny Depp is not negative towards Miss Heard, is it?
No,
is.
but the tweets that use that hashtag are.
No, but the hashtag itself, the hashtag that predominates through your analysis is not, in fact, negative towards Miss Heard.
I'm not opining on the hashtag itself. I'm talking about the tweets that contain that hashtag.
The wizard. Oh my God.
But
Why
the
are you doing
hashtag
this?
itself is not negative.
That's not part of my opinion, one way or the other.
Oh my God.
Do you have an opinion as to whether justice for Johnny Depp is a good thing?
That's not part of my assignment.
Okay.
The wizard
You
is
agree with me,
losing,
justice
and he
in general
shouldn't
is a
be
good
losing.
thing?
Big fan of justice.
All right, me
He
too.
shouldn't be losing. He's losing. He's
All right,
throwing
object.
He's throwing this away.
Okay, yes, sir.
He's out of mana.
Chanel, you reviewed
Spell reflect. Yeah.
a large sampling of tweets of justice for Johnny Depp, correct?
That lawyer's
did.
kind of bad.
And the
no.
and the tweets that
He's
had
so
the hashtag
good, he's
justice
bad.
for Johnny Depp. How many of them were negative toward Miss Heard?
All of them.
And what percentage
He's
of
so
the
bad,
tweets
he's
with
good.
negative
Excuse me.
hashtags between April 2020 and January
Has losing?
31st,
I'll explain
2021
afterwards.
contain the terms Waldman or Waldman-Yon?
Over
Overruled, I'll allow.
over 25%.
Yeah.
1 out of 4.
And in your analysis, how far in time did the tweets containing the terms Waldman or Waldman-Yon go? Like how far to now?
Well,
Beyond the scope of cross?
He was asking about.
Overruled.
so I think I disclosed at my deposition that I looked further into 2022 and found that it continued to go on. Didn't see any end to it at all.
Okay. And based on your analysis, again, what period of time had more negative tweets against Ms. Heard before or after April
I
2020?
want to talk about this.
It was clearly double as many from April
Come on.
to 2021.
And that's even including the February 2020 spike, correct?
That's right. So that's
God, I have to
and
talk
that
about
happened
this.
before April, obviously. So even if you put that in there, it's still a lot more after April of 2020. And there are fewer months in that time period. I think there are 20 or 15 months in that time period, and 27 months in the first part.
And based on your analysis, what, if any, end do you see to the negative tweets toward Ms. Heard?
Objection, no foundation.
Based on his analysis up until the time?
I'll sustain the objection.
Okay. Did you see any, based on your analysis, did you, at the end of the time of your analysis, what was happening with the negative tweets toward Ms. Heard?
To continue to go on.
Mr. Chanel, after your cross-examination, have any of your opinions in this matter changed?
No, they've not.
Thank you.
All right. All right, so you can have a seat in the courtroom or you're free to go. Okay, sir? Thank you. All right,
Please.
your next
just
witness?
Give me a break.
Okay, sure.
Come on. Oh, okay. All right. I have to say this, right? So I think obviously contextually, what would you say the percentage of people that use the hashtag Justice for Johnny Depp, how many of those people would be negative towards Amber Heard? Like if you had to guess, I would say like 99%. But the guy, the lawyer, was so like, I'm trying to like, what's the word? Pugnacious, so like fucking like pig-headed about it that the lawyer literally backed the wizard into a corner, and the wizard didn't know what to do because he was like, well, it's 99%. How do you know it's 100%? And he's like, I don't know. I'm like, so yeah, see, he doesn't know. And he didn't know how to explain it. He made the guy look like an idiot, and there's no reason for that. He was right. Disagree, you can tweet Depp directly with the hashtag and not even mention Amber? But come on. He was out of mana. Yeah, the wizard got destroyed. The wizard's math was pretty lazy. I don't think it was lazy at all. I think that he aggregated 1 million tweets, and also he even controlled for people that were injecting themselves into the conversation that were not, necessarily part of the bias. And he controlled for 2,000 tweets that were manually reviewed at random sample. So I don't think that the math was wrong at all. I don't. I really actually don't think so. Yeah, the wizard said that's not part of my assignment, and no, he didn't know. It's not his job to say. It doesn't matter if it's his job to say, because it doesn't. If it's not his job to say, people are going to think that he doesn't know what he's talking about, and I think most people would think that. I do. Being in favor of one party means you're against doesn't mean you're against the other party per se. Come on. Come on. We're going to play hide the ball today?